The year is 1127. Snow is falling on the road that leads north. Two men trudge along in a column of prisoners. Thin clothes, bare feet in the snow, driven forward like a pair of goods. Not one of the soldiers guarding them bothers to look twice. And yet, a little over a year before, both men sat on the throne of the great Song. One the father, one the son. Two emperors of the richest empire the world had seen up to that time. In their vaults, silver had once been piled into mountains. On paper, their army numbered more than 1,000,000 men. Their palace was so magnificent that foreign envoys went home and told of it like a tale out of legend. The men marching them north came from the steppe, the cold, dry grassland beyond the border, where nomad peoples lived their whole lives on horseback. To the soldiers hauling them along, these two were nothing more than plunder picked up in the south. Walk too fast, and they were barked at. Too slow, and they were shoved. Hungry, and something was tossed at them to chew on. From the throne of an empire that piled silver into mountains to a column of prisoners in the snow. That road took the Sun more than 100 years to walk. And it did not begin with a lost battle. It did not begin with an invasion. It began on a very quiet night, the night an empire decided, with its own hands, exactly how strong it would let itself be. The year is 960. Chenqiao Station, a short ride from the capital. Inside the camp, a general is sleeping, or pretending to. His name is Zhao Kuang-yin. Not old yet, already a fine commander, and carrying something more dangerous than either: the nerve to go all the way. In the middle of the night, his officers came to his tent. They woke him, threw a yellow robe over his shoulders, the color only an emperor was allowed to wear, and knelt, hailing him as their ruler. Right there, in the middle of the camp. At dawn, he marched his troops back to the capital. He took the throne from a child, the boy emperor of the old court, using the very army that court had just handed him to command. Not a single battle, barely a drop of blood. That is how the Sun was born. But he was not the first man to do this. Half a century earlier, China had been a broken land, no court held for long, generals raising up one dynasty after another and tearing it back down. 5 dynasties, one after another, in just 53 years. Every time the same recipe: a general given command of an army, then turning his spears on the very court that trusted him. He had just run that recipe himself, so he understood it could be run again. And next time, he was the man under the spear. The yellow robe thrown over his shoulders this morning could be thrown over someone else's tomorrow. And he spent the rest of his life shutting that day out. What he feared was not the enemy beyond the border. It was the men who had just knelt at his feet. And he moved, cleanly. Supreme command of the armies was pulled back to the emperor. Generals in the field fought by battle plans drawn in the capital and sent out to them, forbidden to change a thing, even with the enemy right in front of them. Commanders were rotated constantly, moved on before they could learn their own troops. The soldiers did not know their general. The general did not know his soldiers. Over all of it hung a principle he'd built into state doctrine: honor the civil, despise the martial. Scholar officials who passed the examinations sat on top. Generals who commanded armies were watched with suspicion. The soldiers' trade sank so low that a saying outlived the dynasty: good iron isn't beaten into nails. Good men aren't made into soldiers. Around the same time, on the far side of the continent, power belonged to the lords of the sword, men who ruled by the blade. The Sun went the other way. It seated the man with the brush above the man with the sword, and his purpose was achieved. For more than 300 years, the Song saw almost no great military coup. The disease that had killed 5 dynasties in half a century, here it went out. Inside the four walls of the palace, the throne was safe. But that safety had a price, and the price only showed itself out on the northern frontier. The summer of 986, the Song's northern campaign is collapsing. The Sung had split its army into 3 columns and struck north to take back land lost to the Liao, the empire of the Khitan people out on the steppe. The main column was crushed. All 3 had to pull back, and in that retreat, the court gave one wing of the army a task: not to attack, not to hold a city, only to escort the people of 4 border prefectures safely south. A simple withdrawal. The man commanding that wing had a name the whole Liao army knew: Yang Ye. He was a frontier general who had fought steppe cavalry nearly his whole life. They called him Yang the Invincible. Not empty praise. The Liao only had to see the banner with the Yang name to quietly pull back and refuse battle. Along the whole border, he was the man the Liao feared most. The best general. The easiest job. Nothing in it to worry about. But Yang Ye looked at the field and saw a problem. The Liao held the momentum now, pressing hard. Moving 200,000 civilians through cavalry in full pursuit was a fragile thing. So he laid out a plan. Don't meet them head-on. Feint to draw the Liao off in another direction. Then set heavy crossbows in a mountain pass to cover the people as they slipped through. Save the people, save the army, and still stall the enemy. It was the move of the man who read the field most clearly, but he did not have the power to decide. Riding with the wing was a supervising official named Wang Shen, a man the court sent out to keep watch on the generals, who had never commanded troops in the field. Wang Shen threw out Yang Ye's plan on the spot. Then he said one thing. "You call yourself invincible. Now you see the enemy and hang back. Or is your heart somewhere else?" The line cut, because it hit the exact wound. Yang Ye was not Sung-born. He had been a general of a state the Sung swallowed, and only later surrendered. For a general who had come over, 3 words: heart somewhere else. The heaviest charge on earth. It called him a traitor. Fighting might mean death, but being suspected of a divided heart meant losing his name and his whole clan with it. Yang Ye knew perfectly well that riding out now was death. He said so plainly, in front of everyone. Then he went anyway. He asked for one thing: that troops be set at the mouth of Chenjiagu Valley, so when he fought his way back to it, there would be someone to meet him. Without that, not one man of his wing would come home. Wang Shen gave his word. He rode out. He fought. He held from midday to dusk, fighting and falling back, straight toward Chenjiagu as agreed. Then he reached the place. Empty. Not one soldier waiting. Wang Shen had sent a man up a high tower to watch, seen nothing stirring, guessed Yang Ye had already won, and ordered every soldier pulled off the mouth of the valley to march away and grab the credit. The very spot Yang Ye had asked him to hold, that supervisor left open. Yang Ye stood looking at the place where the relief should have been. Then he turned and fought on. Because there was no other road. His son was killed. Almost every man under him died. Yang Ye himself, covered in wounds, was taken alive. In enemy hands, he refused food and water. 3 days later, he was dead. There is no traitor here, only a machine running exactly as it was built. The man with the sword must obey the man with the brush. The man who sees the field must defer to the man who does not, so that no general ever holds enough power to unseat the emperor. In the palace, that was a line of state doctrine that guarded the throne. In a mountain pass in the north that summer, it had a corpse. Nearly 40 years after Yang Ye died in Liao's hands, on Liao's soil at Gubei-Ko, the people built a temple to him, not to a man who lost, but under the name that made even his enemy remember: Yang the Invincible. And Yang Ye was not one stray case. The great campaigns of the early Sung mostly ended the same way: the same machine, the same price. The Sung slowly came to understand one thing: their army, against the cavalry of the North, lost. The only question left was when the North would move again. The year is 1004. Bad news races back to the capital. The Liao have crossed the border. This time it wasn't a raid on a few prefectures before pulling out. This time they came straight on, skirting the great cities, driving their horses deep into Songland. In no time, steppe cavalry sat just one river away from the capital, the Yellow River. The man on the throne then was Emperor Zhenzong, grandson of the man who wore the yellow robe, and in the court, panic. One high minister knelt and urged the emperor to abandon the capital, to move the throne south. Another argued for the west, into Shu, far from the Liao horsemen. The whole court split, some for running one way, some the other. No one argued for staying. And the emperor himself wanted to run. Only one man stood up and said the opposite: the chancellor, Ko Jun. He pushed the emperor not to run, pushed him to go all the way to the front himself, to the bank of the Yellow River, to stand where the whole army could see him. Because the moment an emperor flees, the country caves in. But if the emperor shows himself, the army can steady. Zhenzong, driven to the wall, went. And at the front, the game locked up. When the emperor appeared, Sung morale rose. A great bolt from a Sung crossbow struck down a key Liao commander. The Liao faltered. But the Sung couldn't drive them back north either. Not a Sung win, not a Liao win. The two sides jammed hard against each other. The Liao were too deep in enemy land, supply lines thin. Their commander just killed. Pressing on was a gamble. The Sung could block, but couldn't swallow. Neither could swallow the other. And out of that deadlock, with no way through, envoys began crossing between the two camps. A treaty took shape. History calls it the Treaty of Chanyuan. The terms: each year, the Song would pay the Liao a sum in silver and silk. In return, the Liao pulled out. Both sides stopped fighting. The border went quiet. How much? 100,000 taels of silver and 200,000 bolts of silk every year. An empire that called itself the center of all under heaven, paying silver each year to a steppe people it still called barbarians. On its face, that was a disgrace. But set that number beside another number, and everything changes color. How rich was the Sung? That silver and silk, by modern estimates, came to roughly 3/1,000ths of the court's budget. 3/1,000ths. While one great campaign to the north cost 100 times more, and could still end in defeat, as it already had. On paper, the thing that carried the name of national disgrace was a bargain. And the peace came. For real. And with the peace came money. No more war. The frontier quiet. Trade burst open. Kaifeng grew into one of the largest cities in the world of its time. Markets opened through the night. So crowded that metal coin ran short, and people printed the first paper money in history to trade with. The rich grew richer. The shame at the start faded a little more with every passing year. In its place, another feeling rose: comfort. Pay one small sum, and a whole empire got to grow rich in peace. Who wanted to bring up war, to bring up an army rotting on its feet in the middle of prosperity like that? That was when the Sung finished choosing. not choosing cowardice, choosing comfort. And comfort, once it becomes a habit, is very hard to give up. In the middle of all that comfort, one man refused to stay quiet. His name was Wang Anshi. Not a general, he was one of the sharpest minds the Song ever produced. A civil official, a man that very system of honoring the scholar had carried to the top. And from that top, he saw the thing a whole age of prosperity did not want to see. All that wealth stood on a hollow foundation, an empire with money to spare, feeding an enormous army on paper, an army that couldn't fight, paying off power after power along its borders to be left alone, feeding a bureaucracy swollen so large that no amount of revenue was ever enough. The silver paid to the north, in the eyes of the whole court, was a bargain. In Wang Anshi's eyes, it was something else, a medicine that only dulled the pain and never touched the wound. Keep taking it, and the day the wound turns bad, no medicine will save you. So he did the thing almost no one dared. He demanded to cure the disease at its root, to overhaul the finances, overhaul the army, so the empire would not only be rich, but able to defend itself. 900 years later, a secretary in Roosevelt's cabinet would call him a New Dealer of China. He failed. Not because an enemy beat him. The enemy hadn't even moved yet. He failed because curing this disease meant someone had to bear the pain, meant reaching into the purses of people living well on 100 years of quiet. And that whole comfortable mass turned on him. The court tore in two, grinding against itself year after year, until no one could remember what they'd set out to cure in the first place. The disease sat right where it was. Wang Anshi did not give up. He pushed it to the end, to exhaustion. He fell, and the machine kept running. The silver still went north every year. Everything stayed smooth. The whole scheme of buying quiet rested on one thing no one bothered to ask: that the one taking the money would always be there to take it. But the steppe does not stand still. Out of the deep north, a new power rose: the Jurchen. They founded the Jin, and they were strong enough to do the thing the Song had dreamed of for 100 years and never managed. They smashed the Liao to pieces. In 1125, the Liao, the one that had taken Sung silver for a century, collapsed. The old creditor was dead. The empty seat it left behind now belonged to the Jin. The Sung did the thing it had done for 100 years. It brought the money to pay. Same silver, same silk, same old way of buying quiet. But the Jin were not the Liao. The Liao had grown old, used to taking money to stay still. The Jin were young, hungry, and had just watched with their own eyes how the Sung army fought, an army that couldn't hold off even a dying Liao. The Jin did not take the silver. A rich quarry with no fangs. Why take a few tens of thousands of taels a year when you could come down and take all of it? The 100-year check. Here, met the man who wouldn't cash it. They poured south. In 1127, the Jin entered Kaifeng. The capital fell. A whole court and all of the north dropped into Jin hands in a single winter. 2 emperors, one father, one son, were marched away in the snow. North, among soldiers speaking a tongue they couldn't understand. The empire that had once piled silver into mountains lost the richest half of its realm entirely. The mountains of silver in the vaults bought no way out. The million-man army on paper held not one gate. On the very day it needed one general strong enough, the place stood empty. Because for 100 and some years, the machine built on the night at Chenqiao did exactly one thing. It let no general grow strong enough. The very empty place where Yang Ye had stood 140 years before and found no relief. We have come back to where the story began. Walk the whole length of this road, and there is no single decision that was simply wrong. On the night at Chen Qiao, a man had just seen how easily a general takes a throne. He built a machine so it would not happen again. It did not happen again. At Chan Yuan, an emperor held a sheet of paper that said paying was 100 times cheaper than fighting. On paper, it truly was cheaper. Each emperor, each reign, chose the move that made sense for him. No one chose wrong for that day. What took half the Sum's realm was not one man. It was that each clever move for today was an arrow pulled out of tomorrow. It was a medicine that eases the pain. Right once, but taken for 100 years, becomes the death. It was a check worth only as much as the enemy wanted it. But the Sum did not end there. The half that remained withdrew to the south, rebuilt its court, and lived on more than another 100 years. That story, the story of the half that was left, belongs to another night. Tonight's story ends here. Until the next night.